New York is often imagined as the city of dreams, towering skyscrapers, Broadway, Times Square. But behind the glitz and glamour lies a much harsher reality, a growing homelessness crisis. Every night, thousands of people are forced to sleep in emergency shelters, or worse, on the streets. So the question is, why does a city this wealthy still fail to provide homes for its own people?
The city and state face off in court today in a high-stakes battle over the right to shelter.
I've been in numerous shelter systems. It's like there's people bidding. It's like they're in prison.
As meanwhile, Mayor Eric Adams defending his plan to deal with the city's homeless crisis by clearing out their encampments across the city.
New York is known as the financial capital of the world, but behind its skyline of towering buildings lies a different truth. It has the largest homelessness crisis in America. Over 158,000 people have been reported as homeless, making up nearly 1 in 5 of the nation's homeless population. The homelessness rate in New York, around 8 per 1,000 residents, is higher than any state except Hawaii and the District of Columbia. In fact, around 60,000 to 70,000 people sleep in city-run shelters every night. And surprisingly, the majority of them are families with children. So the image of homelessness in New York isn't just about adult men sleeping on sidewalks, but also children doing their homework in temporary shelters. Homelessness in New York comes in 2 main forms. There's sheltered homelessness, people living in official city shelters, which makes up the majority. Then there's unsheltered homelessness, those living in public spaces like subway stations, city parks, or sidewalks in Manhattan. Interestingly, New York City's shelter system is the largest in the country, even bigger than the combined systems of several other states. When it comes to location, the issue is most visible in Manhattan. Areas like Penn Station, Times Square, and the East Village are common hotspots. In Brooklyn and the Bronx, it often takes different forms: makeshift tents, squatting in abandoned buildings, or small homeless communities sharing limited space. Upstate New York has its own version of the problem. Homelessness is less visible but still real, often affecting war veterans and low-income rural families. One of the most crucial causes of the homelessness crisis in New York is the housing shortage. The city has the highest rental prices in the United States, often exceeding the average resident's income. Currently, the rental vacancy rate in NYC is nearing a historic low, hovering around 1.4%, the lowest since 1960. Surprisingly, this means nearly all available units, especially those meant to be affordable, are already fully occupied. Meanwhile, rent prices keep climbing. In 2025, the median rent in NYC has reached $3,397 per month, up about 5.6% from the previous year. In addition, drug addiction is another major factor driving people onto the streets. In recent years, fentanyl and heroin have become the most lethal substances, especially among the homeless population. Ironically, there have been more than 4,500 overdose deaths in the city. Many lost their housing stability due to addiction, then became trapped in a cycle that's hard to escape. Another important factor is mental health. Cases of schizophrenia, PTSD, and untreated mental illnesses are very common among homeless individuals. The American Psychiatric Association notes that around 25% of homeless people in New York suffer from serious mental health disorders, much higher than the general population. Veterans are also among the vulnerable groups often included in these statistics, with many struggling to adjust after their military service ends. Interestingly, New York has a unique policy called the right to shelter, which is a legal right for anyone without housing to access city-provided shelters. This policy was established through a 1979 court decision, Callahan vs. Carey, which requires the city to provide temporary shelter to anyone in need. On one hand, this policy provides basic protection and explains why most homeless people in New York stay in shelters rather than on the streets. But on the other hand, it also places a heavy burden on the city budget. In the 2024 fiscal year, New York City is expected to spend more than $4 billion just to manage its shelter system, especially after the arrival of thousands of asylum seekers and new immigrants, which has increased the demand on the system. Recently, Governor Hochul and New York City Mayor Eric Adams announced a new affordable housing plan during the 2025 policy address. In addition, the state of New York is currently implementing a 5-year, $25 billion plan to build or preserve 100,000 units of affordable housing.
I've been in numerous shelter systems. It's like there's people bidding. It's like they're in prison. You know, you got people trying to claim stuff, and people like, yo, you can't walk through here.
Many nonprofit organizations in New York are actively working to help the homeless, providing meals, emergency shelter, and job rehabilitation programs. The Coalition for the Homeless, for example, reported that in 2024, over 120,000 people were homeless each night in NYC, the highest number since the Great Depression. The organization offers services ranging from meal distribution to housing policy advocacy. Then there's the Bowery Mission, operating since 1879, known for its free meal services and emergency shelter in Manhattan. Meanwhile, the Doe Fund runs the Ready, Willing, and Able program, which offers transitional work, job training, and rehabilitation for individuals recovering from homelessness or drug addiction. These groups play a critical role, especially when government efforts can't respond quickly enough to meet the daily needs of the homeless population. Interestingly, New York City has the largest shelter system in the United States. According to the NYC Department of Homeless Services, DHS, 2024 report, the shelter system served over 100,000 people in a year, including families with children, single adults, and asylum seekers. Beyond shelters, the city also runs a Housing First program, which prioritizes providing permanent housing without strict conditions, based on the idea that stable housing helps people more easily address other challenges like employment, health, or addiction. There are also rent assistance programs such as City HEPS and the federal Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher. However, due to limited funding, many people have to wait years to gain access to permanent housing. NYC has also committed to expanding affordable housing, with a goal of building 500,000 affordable units by 2030, but implementation has faced major obstacles on the ground. Despite having the largest shelter system, the reality on the ground is far from ideal. Many shelters are at full capacity, forcing the homeless to move from one location to another, or even sleep on the streets. Another challenge is the NIMBY, not in my backyard phenomenon. Many residents oppose the construction of homeless shelters or housing facilities in their neighborhoods, fearing it could lower property values or increase crime. This kind of resistance slows down the development of much-needed permanent housing. Additionally, the post-COVID-19 cost of living spike has made things worse. According to the Street Easy Rent Index, the average rent for an apartment in NYC in 2024 reached over $3,500 per month, the highest in history. With the minimum wage still around $16 per hour, many low-income workers can no longer afford to keep their homes. The opioid crisis, especially involving fentanyl, is also a major part of the homelessness problem in New York. In response, the city has opened methadone clinics and expanded addiction recovery services. In 2021, NYC became the first U.S. city to open safe injection sites, or overdose prevention centers, in Manhattan, places where people can use drugs under medical supervision to reduce the risk of fatal overdose. According to On Point NYC, the program prevented over 1,000 overdoses in its first year. Policies during Donald Trump's presidency from 2017 to 2020 had a noticeable impact on major cities like New York, especially in relation to the homelessness crisis. During his administration, Trump repeatedly proposed budget cuts for the Department of Housing and Urban Development and various rental assistance programs. These cuts significantly affected high-cost cities like New York, where thousands of families rely on housing vouchers and subsidies. Trump's rhetoric toward big cities was also harsh. He often labeled New York as one of the so-called lawless cities, implying chaos and rising crime. This narrative pushed public debate toward enforcement rather than focusing on long-term solutions like affordable housing. At its peak, between 2019 and 2020, Trump made strong criticisms of homelessness in New York and California, even threatening federal intervention, a move that sparked controversy and highlighted how homelessness was often used as a political tool rather than addressed as a complex social issue requiring real solutions. The homelessness crisis in New York City is not a fate that must be accepted, but the result of systemic failure in housing policy. Skyrocketing rent prices, slow development of affordable housing, and overburdened shelters have left thousands trapped in a cycle of structural poverty. NYC may have a unique right-to-shelter model, guaranteeing emergency shelter for everyone, but the system is more reactive than preventative. The biggest obstacle isn't technical, it's political will. Conflicts between city, state, and federal governments have stalled many policies at the bureaucratic level. Yet data clearly shows that long-term solutions are more cost-effective and socially beneficial. For instance, the 2023 NYC Comptroller's report noted that the city spent over $4 billion on temporary shelters, while the number of homeless individuals remained consistently high, around 90,000 per night in 2023. The solution lies in a complete strategy shift. First, accelerate affordable housing development through tax incentives for developers, streamlined permitting processes, and the use of government-owned vacant land. Strengthen addiction rehabilitation and mental health services, as these are core issues for a large portion of the homeless population. Third, adopt a data-driven approach rather than relying on street sweeps, which often fail to reduce homelessness effectively. And finally, allocate funding more wisely. Instead of pouring billions into emergency shelters each year, investments should go toward permanent housing integrated with social services. Some believe they normalize drug use, while others see them as a practical way to save lives.